Hey, it's the Gear of the Year show. This is a tradition going back a little while. Jordan Drake is back. He's been here before. Every time we choose our favorite tech and our favorite cameras and then more cameras. And this year there's a lot of cameras. But thanks for coming back one more time, Jordan. How many years has it been? Can you remember off the top of your head?
I think this is 7.
Oh my!
Because this goes back to cameras or whatever. So
that's a lot. That's actually, I wasn't even going to guess that much. So somebody else fact check him on that. But then I've also got a newcomer here, Patrick Tomaso, which we're good Twitter friends, but not. You haven't been on the show before. You do your own YouTube. You've got your own podcast. You got it all going on.
Jack of all trades, master of none. I'm kind of taking a little personally that you picked me for the 2020 new person. I don't know if there's a correlation there. It being such a crazy
it's
year.
It's your year. 2021's your year. So I'm glad to have you. I mean, I feel like you've been picking up steam too. You've been like releasing more like on a regular schedule with your videos and stuff too. Which is great to see.
It's been good. I'm trying to dive into a little bit more. I mean, the pandemic, as we all know, is just giving us a little bit more time for good or bad reasons, of course. But no, it's been fun to dive into it, especially this year for sure.
Cool. Well, I very appreciate coming on, and you're here to add a little balance because, as we all know, Jordan doesn't know anything about technology. He carves into a stone tablet. So whenever I try to talk to Jordan about this, I'm like, like computers, right? And he's like, what do you mean computers?
Every 3 years, I go into the Mac store and I say, my computer's not good.
So
give me this many dollars of computer. And they give me that many dollars of computer. And that's good for another 2 to 3 years.
But we've got a lot of categories. So
this year's an exception. Well, next year's going to be an exception.
I assume you did tons of homework for this. And our first category is computer of the year, which, man, okay, first of all, if it doesn't get said at any other point, and I'll say it 1,000 times, this was the craziest year for tech announcements. Like, as I look through all the options of things to choose, especially cameras, also computers, this will be one of the biggest years looking back. At least on a short-term scale, we haven't found out yet if this is going to end up, like any of the things that came out in 2020 are going to be like iPhone events. I mean, okay, none were iPhone events, but, huge landmark era-defining announcements. I don't know if that happened yet, but we do have some of the biggest things of the last, at least, of like a 5-year before and after announcements. Am I at least right about that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, let's start with computers. Here, I'm going to read the categories first, so everybody knows what's coming up. We got computer, app, stills camera, hybrid camera, video camera, accessory, which take that as you want, a movie or series. I expanded the category this year. Video game or board game if you want it, I guess. Book and podcast. So that's it. I hope everybody's got some answers to debate, but this first one may not have a lot of debate going into it. I'd be shocked if it does. Let's talk about computers. I happen to use a lot of Apple computers, so I'm sure everybody could guess more or less roughly what I might choose. So I'm going to be specific. We all know that the M1 series came out this year, but I would choose one that I didn't end up using, actually. So I'm sort of reaching out and guessing based on other people's reviews, but I'm going to go with the MacBook Air because it is as powerful as something like a MacBook 16-inch with no fan, and that's insane, and it's very reasonably priced. So I don't know. Patrick, am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I had
I am.
I got the Mac. No, I don't think you're wrong. I got the Mac Mini. So I got the M1 Mac Mini. And for a little bit of like background, I was coming from a mid 2015 MacBook Pro. So this is like a monumentally massive upgrade. And because I already had an iPad Pro, I was basically thinking, do I really need another laptop? Do I need another like Apple Silicon processor for on the go? And it's a pandemic, so we're at home. And so also it was just one of the cheaper ones when it first was announced. I was like, what do I have to lose here? It's like under $1,000 basically, right? And if anybody's seen my video on the M1 Mac Mini when it first came out, I've never been more excited in a video before. So that was like, for me, when I rewatched that video now, I'm like, wow, I wasn't excited about anything else that I've probably ever done on my YouTube channel before than this computer. And, now that we're a few months into actually owning it, my thoughts are exactly the same. I've had some little issues with Bluetooth here and there, which I won't really get into on this, of course, but I mean, it's a huge paradigm shift, like we've heard. But for me, like this is like a groundbreaking computer for me from as a freelancer, as a YouTube creator, whatever. Just the speed, everything, and just how affordable it is. Like it's crazy. And this is also the year that I bought a PC, and that's just collecting dust. So there you go with that.
Well, do you think it's going to hold up as like a big production machine? Especially, I'm curious to see what happens as these bigger computers roll out. Like once there is a 16-inch, once we have an iMac with the Apple Silicon processors in there. I mean, like, we're so surprised right now because they're so fast relative to what they are, but it's going to get faster and our expectations are going to be raised really quickly. Are you going to keep using it, or are you just waiting for the bigger options to be announced?
Yeah, the way I've kind of justified this, and I've said this to other creators who are like contemplating whether or not they should get one now, is like, for me, it's a business, right? It's like, I need speed now. I can't kind of wait for speed because I was coming from a slow machine, right? If you already had a 16-inch MacBook Pro or something, if you have a good Mac Pro and iMac, whatever, I don't think it makes as much sense. But for me, like, I've paid for it tenfold already just from the speed advancements that I have now. And what I'm considering is when the new ones come out, I'll have to make a decision. Is whatever that speed improvement worth whatever it's going to cost over what I have now in terms of will I be able to make my investment back on the new one? But at the same time, when it does come out, I'm thinking, why not? I already paid for this one essentially for the work that I've done. So if this one's $2,000, $3,000, and I can use it for the next 5 years instead of a year with this one, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer because the baseline is just so crazy now. So we probably see a lot of videos come out being like, is it worth upgrading? You know what I mean? Like that could be what happens. Like we'll see computers that are $2,000, $3,000 or whatever over $1,000 laptops, and we'll be like, is it worth it? Like brass tacks, is it really worth the performance improvement? But of course, it's too early to tell, right?
I mean, we're suddenly having the same leveling of the playing field with computers that we kind of experienced with cell phone. Like as phone cameras and processors got really good, it opened up all the opportunities for beginners that like, well, their parents bought them an iPhone and now they're filmmakers on the same level as, everyone that they're seeing online and have access to the same apps and software. And, if you want to be a TikTok star making short videos or whatever it is, like you can produce amazing stuff as good as everyone else. Cause like, even the president drinks Coke, like same situation just happened with computers. It's like now the $1,000 computer for everyone can totally crush video editing, can edit in 4K, can run After Effects half decently, is going to be weirdly decent at gaming because of the way that Unity is going to cross over, and many other, like, there's this super long list of like, wow, we're all going to have access to something amazing for a reasonable price. Jordan, what do you think of all this?
Well, I'm really thinking, because I've got an older, like 2017 MacBook Pro 15, I'm really thinking of grabbing just a MacBook Air as a stopgap for when I have to work with H.265 video. Because, I mean, the Sony A7S III and the Canon R5 just destroyed this thing this year, where otherwise it's been fine working with most 4K. So, and then inevitably, I know I'm going to get the 16-inch version whenever that is, the M1 whenever it does come out. But I'm really thinking about it because the amount of time I'm wasting right now with those much more demanding compressed files, or I can just buy a stack of hard drives and shoot everything all I, which is what I've been doing, and it's killing me.
Right. Yeah. We're in this weird transition phase, speaking of that, the way that you shoot and the slowness of video, where it's like, I thought I had 4K under control. I thought I could edit any footage that you threw at me. And all of a sudden, like these new cameras, they didn't get, I don't know, whatever. We'll get to that when we talk about cameras. But I feel like we can keep moving because like we're all kind of in agreement. Everybody knows how great of a year this was for Apple. I'm very curious to see how the PC world responds. If we were gamers, we'd probably have more to say about GPUs as well, because like every year NVIDIA is just like running, and then Radeon is catching up like over and over. Like the race over there is really exciting. I don't happen to use any of it, but I don't know. It's a crazy year for all of it.
Absolutely.
The next category I have is best app of 2020. Who wants to go first?
I don't think it came. I don't mean, does the category, it doesn't have to come out in 2020, right? It's just maybe the app you used most.
Yeah, mine didn't come out in 2020. I just think it has to make sense for, like, an example would be, which I would not choose, would be Zoom. It's like, that is absolutely an app of 2020, even though, I'd been using Zoom for quite a few years before that for work stuff, but it took off. So I don't know. What do you got?
I mean, for me, I think it has something to do with the AirPods Max coming out, maybe even the AirPods Pro coming out too. I mean, that's not really 2020, but I've been using Tidal a lot, which sounds crazy because it seems like it's the dark horse of the streaming apps in terms of music. But it's one of those things where I tell people, at least get the trial. There's like a 30-day trial, of course. And if you're someone who uses Apple Music, if you're someone who uses Spotify, what you'll find is when you try Tidal for the first time, if you're even remotely into any type of audio, you don't have to be a full-blown audiophile in any sense of the word, but there is just such a clarity difference when you do use hi-fi. And, you know, not taking money into the equation, it is obviously a little bit expensive. If you start having all these different streaming apps, it's kind of becoming what's happening with, like, you know, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all these different streaming apps we have. And do you really need 3 different ways to listen to music? Apparently I do, because I've just been using Tidal quite a bit. And of course, Apple Music comes with your phone, and I do love Spotify because it's all integrated. But for me, I think Tidal, the hi-fi music, has just been one of the most used things that I've used this year. And I think it has a lot to do with, because I got AirPods Max and I've been trying to get a little bit more into the audio side of things as an audiophile, as much as I don't want to call myself that. But if you have time, or if you want to check it out, it's worth at least giving the trial a shot.
That is so not what I would have guessed, because before you said it, I literally did not know the Tidal was still around. So
oh, nice.
It's a double surprise.
It's a PSA. It's a PSA too.
Yeah, it's still out there.
It lives.
How much is it Canadian?
I think it comes out to, like, same as Spotify. It's around $8 to $10, something like that. I believe. Don't quote me on that. I try not to look at what my subscriptions are. It could be a lot more. I just kind of let it set it and forget it. But yeah, 30-day trial is at least worth.
Until I said that out loud, I was like, oh, hey, wait, we have an all Canadian panel today. That's kind of fun.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, for sure.
Jordan, what do you got? Have you used your phone in the past year?
Well, one thing that I really started mixing up, and I think this will be like apply to a lot of creators, is you know, I would occasionally take a look at the YouTube analytics, just see how things are going, you know, immediately after a video was put out. And then just this year, I don't know why it took me so long, I put YouTube Studio on my phone. And it's actually...
What? You just this year?
Just this year. I was... I don't want my work coming, but then I realized, like, yeah, my work is everything else on my phone. It might as well be on there as well. But I know this is something that came up on Twitter a little while ago, Tyler, was the asking for subscriptions and things like that, which, you know, we did as a, you know, relatively meaningless, throw it in at the end. And we started doing it mid-video and being like, hey, look, our success is judged in our company by our subscription numbers. This is really, really important. And we had the biggest subscription month we've ever had. So little things like that I typically wouldn't pay attention to, I'm starting to more, and it's actually really paying off. So yeah, it might seem like an obvious one, but it's one that I was kind of neglecting, and it's made things work better this year.
So how do you phrase that? I mean, I was just watching you guys do it.
Desperation.
Your best and worst of 2020. And it's like a full-on telethon where you like take a 5-minute break and you're like showing photos of Chris Nichols looking sad.
Well, I don't know when this is coming out, but I think I can spoil it. So next month, if we can hit a certain target by Valentine's Day, Chris gets to choose the camera that I film the show on for a while. So he's looking at Rebel T2Is or like the XC10,
Amazing.
My least favorite camera of all time ever. So so we'll see. Just doing things like that. But, you know, it's one of those things where subscriber numbers were steady. We didn't pay attention to them, and it turned out we could be doing a lot better with them. So
you heard Jordan go subscribe to DP Review TV.
Please, God.
Yes.
Subscribe.
The Twitter conversation for anybody that missed is I've always this is getting so off topic, but I've always very intentionally not called out like, hey, and if you like what you're seeing, go subscribe. And the reason for me is like, I feel like most people that use the subscription button on YouTube, which is not everybody. Like I didn't subscribe to anybody for years. They know where it is. And if they're liking the channel, they like have it built into their routine. And a lot of people I think do it really poorly. Tons of videos. It's like the beginning of the video, the opening thing. It's like, hi, my name is so-and-so. And if you like what you're seeing here, you should ring the bell, subscribe. And it's like, dude, I haven't watched the video yet. I don't know if you're any good. Like, who are you? So I was really allergic to that. But yeah, from what you said, and Renee was also saying this, and Gerald, I don't know, a few people were mentioning it all at once, that like, no, it makes a difference. Bringing it up seems to actually make a dent. So who knew?
What you got, Tyler?
Patrick, you got an app?
He did do an app.
Tidal.
It's your turn.
I did it. It's your turn.
Oh, you did an app. You said Tidal. I already forgot Tidal exists.
Second time today.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right, I got an app. My app was not released in 2020, and I just feel like it really took off for a lot of people. Like, it's very present, and I started using it, so that's maybe why it's mine. I think it still needs to prove itself to me in 2021. So maybe I'm doing this a little preemptively. It's only been the past few months I've been on it, but that's Notion, and
nice.
You have probably seen it around a little bit. Are the two of you using it?
No, Jackson Hayes keeps trying to get me to use it, but I haven't got around to it yet. So you're the second major recommendation that I should probably try it.
Yeah. So, I'm still slightly into between because I'm such a disorganized person that creating any sort of system for myself is kind of risky. It's like, as soon as I start putting more time into the system than into doing the things, it all falls apart. I've tried various apps in the past. What I've really enjoyed about Notion is that it's really simple to just start doing something, like to just create a basic layout of, it's the way that I started, and what a lot of people can start with is like a table, which is, like sort of like a spreadsheet. And that's all it is. And your good examples for like tracking projects. But what's really nice about it is you can start expanding those out in a way that it's like you're kind of building your own app. So if you've put your upcoming YouTube videos in a spreadsheet, you're also able to view that as a calendar view, and you can also convert that to a Kanban chart where you're able to like move projects through the progress of how much they've been done. You're able to tag them. You're able to add other members and assign them roles. And part of the reason this started up is because, we have a new staff member here that's been editing for us. It's going to be editing this right now. And so it's like very helpful to be able to pass stuff, keep track of what we're passing back and forth. And so far it's been great. The only risk is what I say. It's like, is the overhead worth it? And everybody's got to figure that out for themselves. I think if I was just doing it by myself, I wouldn't find it worth it. It'd be easier for me to just keep doing my little like to-do notes in my Apple Notes app or in my to-do lists. But being able to communicate with somebody else, with a team member like that, is super helpful. So Notion it is. Any runner-ups? Anybody?
I mean, I could go down the whole path of I still use Visco nonstop, even though they just updated. I'm not too happy with the new update, but we'll see what happens in the next few updates.
Yeah, it's still my favorite processing engine. Just the way that it deals with color, the way that simple things like the way that it does exposure and white balance. I just prefer it.
Totally.
Like it quickly comes out looking better than the others, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like I honorable mention, even though I'm not into it, like 2020 was also the year of TikTok in a ridiculous way that is, even though I'm an old, I can't ignore it. And it's maybe even on my mind because it hit us this week where Anya we shot a reel for Instagram. She has TikTok and she's like, I'll just post it over here too. And it totally like blew up. It's like 300,000 in a couple days and off of an account that has no followers. And now she has followers as well. It's like the ability to bring in a massive audience instantly out of nowhere. I've never seen this before. And it also seems like real engagement. It's not like when for a while Facebook was really inflating their views on videos. And I think it's because anybody scrolling past it would get counted. TikTok, I don't know, maybe they're counting them aggressively, but there also is ridiculous engagement. Like there's also, the people are there, and almost every year of 2020 was the most downloaded app. So that's got to be saying something.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm just always looking for a way to use licensed music for vignettes. So this is great. That's the one appeal I can see for TikTok is,
no restrictions.
If I want to do a bunch of songs with the word burn in it and zoom in on a Canon R5, I've got a legal way to do it now. So that's very exciting for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm curious to see how like monetization comes out of it maybe this year with TikTok for creators. I still feel like it's a little bit of like maybe an elite crowd has access to that in any respect, but like we've seen all these like overnight successes of, like you said, like, you get 100,000 followers from like 2 TikToks. I'm waiting to see, like, maybe I got to dabble in it more. Maybe I'm too old for it too, but I'm waiting to see like when can you monetize that in a way that makes sense for creators too, to be like, this is actually a really viable, maybe like alternative revenue stream if you're also doing, because we're all kind of gravitating away from Instagram too, in a sense, right? So that could be a place for us to go in the future. So that's what I'm more curious about with TikTok for sure.
Yeah, will happen. Like other platforms, first the kids show up and the adults all think it's only for kids, but then it becomes so full of normal content that we can't stay away and we ruin it for the kids and they move somewhere else. So the difference with TikTok compared to say Snapchat or other success stories recently, I think, is that TikTok has been hitting critical mass. No, terminal velocity is really what I'm thinking. Like the speed of growth has been unlike anything else. And that's the reason I have a feeling they are going to be propelled past that ability for Facebook to steal their concept, which is, what's happened so many other times. Like we kind of forget how aggressive and insultingly blatant Facebook and therefore Instagram is about just stealing ideas. Like, this is your idea. I want that idea. I am taking it. It is now Instagram's idea. And it's kind of gross, but it's been working for them. Yeah. And this time I feel like TikTok has gotten big enough, fast enough that they might be able to transcend that, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, because I definitely don't think Reels is going to do it, like from at least what we've seen so far.
Right? Not yet. I got cameras coming up, and this might take up a lot of time, so we can't get completely bogged down in it. Maybe we'll start with this one. I think can go through the fastest, and that's best stills camera, best photography camera of 2020. I'll go first on this one, and I didn't try a ton that I really invested myself into enough to understand them. Jordan, I'm hoping you can go through a whole list of every single thing that was announced.
I've touched it all. Yep.
But I've just got to say the Canon R5 has been absurdly good. It's like it just delivers on everything we've been hoping for so long. We waited forever for Canon we waited to see what Canon was going to do in the mirrorless world. Like, why aren't they getting into this? Why are they letting Sony run away with it? And once the R5 and R6 came out, and you know what? I kind of think of them like a bundle. I feel like the R6 can share this crown if it's what you happen to need. It's not a worse camera. It is just meant for a different audience to me. Those two are so much of what I hoped for. And part of the reason I feel like this doesn't have to be a long category is because we really are just starting to plateau feature-wise and quality-wise, where it's like everything. There are so many really excellent cameras. And a funny thing I noticed is we have done a few shoots this year where we both had some R5 and R photos of the shot at virtually exactly the same time. And when I'm sorting through them afterwards on the computer, I'm like, I don't know which is which. So that's like the kind of interesting thing that I feel like we have been chasing this image quality every year, but the R is a 5D Mark IV sensor, and if it doesn't jump out at me full size in Lightroom or Capture One, what are we so worried about when it comes to image quality? So R5, it's all about usability. That's really where it delivered that we're really lacking with the R, and just sort of more well-rounded feature set. But I don't know. Well, am I crazy, Jordan? What are all the other cameras I'm not thinking?
I mean, I'm R5 for camera of the year as well, and I think you touched on it right at the end, is usability. Because I was just like, I hope it one day feels as good as a DSLR, but I prefer using the R5 to a 5D4 or something. You got the triple control dials on it, which makes a big difference. The touchscreen interface is a lot better thought out. It's just a better experience using it. And whenever I give it to a photographer, it's so well thought out. There's no learning curve for them. They'll start intuitively using the tracking right because they're used to putting their center point on their subject, but now it's tracking their eyes and everything, just like Sony's done, but in a body that feels really good. And their image quality, like you said, it's caught up to everyone else. So even, I work for GP Review. We take underexposed pictures and we push them like crazy. And if you do that, the R5 is still competitive with everything else out there. So that would definitely be my pick.
I'm going to throw one wild card in. Cool. So maybe people know this about me, but I'm a huge Fuji shooter. Mm-hmm. And Fuji did let me play with the X-T4 and the XS10 this year. And I'm actually going to give it to the XS10. I loved that camera as a still. Yeah. As a stills shooter, I think it's everything I kind of like about an X100V, but you have interchangeable lenses, right? It's small, it's compact, it's got good ergonomics. It's fun to kind of carry around for a street shooter, but then you're still getting that X-Trans sensor that is like an X-T4 or an X-T3. So the image quality is up there with cameras that are, 1500, 1600 up to 2000. And we're talking about a 999 camera now that's tiny. I wish I had one with me still because it's so tiny. Like I would put it beside my X100, which everyone kind of knows is a small compact, and it's basically the same size with a deeper grip. So if you're APS-C Super 35, and especially everyone knows Fuji's colors are just wonderful with the film sims and everything, I had so much fun with the XS10. I'm really trying hard not to buy one, to be honest with you right now. I don't need it, but it's definitely a camera I want. I loved it.
So I didn't follow it at all. I kind of need to know what are you giving up from the XT4, which I did try, and based on that, I mean, the XT4 was so damn good. Like I loved every moment with it, especially for video as well. But what do you lose by paying a little less?
Go ahead, Patrick.
I mean, Jordan would know the ins and outs of like the bitrate type stuff. For me, as like a practical sense, not a whole lot, to be completely honest with you. When you start to look at it and you're shooting with these, especially on the still side, if we're talking stills, you could blow both these images up, and you know, I could never tell the difference. I don't think anybody in this chat could tell the difference when you see it from these cameras. You are getting some, like, I'm assuming more autofocus points and stuff with the XT4 and a lot more bells and whistles on that side of it, but actually, Jordan, does it even have any more? The sensor's the same, right?
Same autofocus system, same sensor. You do get a downgrade in terms of the viewfinder. It's a sharper, faster refreshing viewfinder. And there's no internal 10-bit recording or 4K 60. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, it's the same battery even. Like, it's same battery, banging, it's such a good value. And I'm sure, like, a lot of people are saying XT4 sales weren't quite what we were expecting because the XT3 was so good. But I think as soon as this camera was even rumored, everyone's like, I'm going to save, hundreds and hundreds of dollars and get, especially for photographers, the same thing. And the grip feels wonderful. This is the only grip so Chris and I have ever agreed on. I love it and he loves it. And usually it's like, I like the big hand camera, he likes the small hand cameras, but it's wonderful.
But it's a tragedy to me that we can blow past some cameras that are this good with because there are so many good ones right now. Like the XT4 is going to be basically a runner up, and I'm not even going to think about it again. Like I tried it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, I haven't thought about it since. Because the Canons have been so great. And even, Sony didn't really have so much in the still. There was no new R. That wasn't this 2020, right?
No, that was last year.
Sony didn't do anything new, but like they're still totally killing it. Like everything is so good. Any honorable mentions, Jordan? Anything we are totally forgetting about?
Well, Chris and I included on ours the Nikon Z5, which is just a killer value.
I always forget Nikon.
Just a very well-rounded. Ergonomics are great on it, and it makes a lot more sense as it's priced than their kind of higher-end stuff. And I have to say the Q2 monochrome from Leica is the most fun I've had with a camera in maybe 3 years. Like, it is amazing. Just a black and white, 28 millimeter full-frame camera.
But why the monochrome is the most fun you've had compared to the not monochrome, the color?
Well, I mean, I can always flip over, the camera into black and white JPEG and shoot RAW, and I'm getting a very similar experience. But if it is a true black and white sensor, and this is why, Red and Phase 1 are still doing this, the images are nicer. You have less noise and more detail. And I just find it's a pleasure. Even when I'm shooting black and white JPEGs with RAW files, I'm still in the back of my mind thinking like, this sucks, but maybe in color it's going to pan out. Where if like loading a roll of black and white film, this has to work in black and white, I find it just very satisfying. And it might be because I only had the camera for 2 glorious weeks, so it was a real breath of fresh air. I'm sure there's times I would go out with it and be like, man, this would be better in color. But it just was a very freeing experience where I almost forgot I could shoot video. I was just like, photography's fun and wonderful the whole time I had it.
So because we had so many good cameras, we decided to add another category of hybrid specifically. Maybe this will be pointless. We'll see. But, this is especially just to take some of the pressure off the video category because there were so many video cameras. And, are we going to be choosing the best of the best? So I have a feeling we'll end up talking about cameras that, aren't so much in like a mirrorless body, maybe in the video section. Maybe we won't. I don't know. We'll see. But we opened up a hybrid category. And I feel like I need to figure this out a little. I put down the R5 as mine. I think I'll probably stick to that because it is, the video is very good. I'm super frustrated with C-Log still. Yes. We have been promised that there will be C-Log 3. Jordan, correct me. It's still 3. It's not C-Log 2.
Just 3 only. They haven't said 2 yet.
Yeah. That will change things a little, I think. That could bump this forward a bit. And it's that's the really big thing in my books that the A7S III still has over the R5 is serious dynamic range. Like S-Log 2 and S-Log 3 is not the same as C-Log. It has way more room for grading and way more latitude. And so that's the big letdown on the Canon. It doesn't matter that it has RAW, because with RAW, you can still, I think in Resolve, there's a workaround so you can get it to C-Log 3, but it has the exact same dynamic range. Like, it doesn't seem to actually be expanding it. So I don't know. It's like, but it's very competent. I've really enjoyed it because of the image stabilization has made it such a good runaround camera. So when I've had like the C200 as the A cam, I've picked up the R5 that is fully stabilized and just shot with it without a gimbal or a tripod. And you really can't tell afterwards, which is really amazing for full frame. So yeah, it is a very, very capable video camera. The overheating stuff, I've sort of forgot about it. I just, I don't know. I know it was there, but it stopped bothering me after a while. So thinking about it, but yeah, I still feel like because the stills are so strong and the A7S III doesn't have that covered at all. Like, okay, the stills are fine, but they are below the threshold of minimum megapixels. That's why I feel like it's got to go to the R5.
Yeah, the one thing I would mention is the 4K HQ on that, I hope is the direction that a lot of these cameras start going. Because I love super sampled 4K, like we got cameras that pull it from 6K or 5K. Having something that detailed, but still storing it in 4K, like that's, I would much rather have very crisp 4K than the huge bandwidth that you need for 100%. 6K and 8K, things like that. I was just going to say, the C-Log thing, I was just out shooting with the R6 in the mountains just last week. And yeah, the C-Log killed me. Like, I'm shooting in the mountains and I did not have enough dynamic range.
It's trash. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I feel like we kind of ignore it. Or not we, people, because we were used to it. It was like, well, I don't know, hybrid cameras don't have a ton of dynamic range, but all of a sudden they do, and they're 10-bit, so we can expect more from our color profiles.
Well, when did the C300 original come out? Because that's when that profile came out. So we've moved on a lot in sensors in probably the 10 years since that thing came out.
Yeah, for sure. To me, this is software crippling. Like, if Magic Lantern was available for the R5, it would be able to take those raw files and, of course, make them C-Log 3. So, Patrick?
I'm going to go with the Lumix X5. I feel like it was a sleeper hit this year. I loved it. I just finished my review of it too. I just gave it back to Panasonic. And it was a camera where I've been a bit of a detractor on full frame. I don't know why. I've just been a Micro Four Thirds guy. I have Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and now I've just started getting a Super 35 with the Fujis and whatnot. And this S5 is the first full frame camera I've used where I'm like, I have to buy this. I'm going to buy this at some point. I played with the 6K RAW, with the ProRes RAW. It's beautiful. It's got the full Vlog. It's not the Vlog L, which a lot of people are used to from like a GH5. GH5 is my holy grail camera, and the most simplest way to put the S5, to me, it's just a full frame GH5. And the GH5 to me is a legendary camera. And to me, so that's like one of the best compliments I could probably give a camera, is to say that to go from a GH5 to the S5, and now that lenses even, like the size of the S5 is crazy, because for full frame, if you look at like a 1235 on a Micro Four Thirds camera and put it towards, what's the kit lens on the S5 again, Jordan?
20 to 60.
The 2060, like they're almost identical in size, which is crazy to me. And so now that we're seeing like full frame get so advanced in technology and they're just getting smaller and smaller, full frame makes sense for me now. And if I'm going to get into it for a $2,000 body that's shooting way above its weight class, I love the S5 a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a great counterpoint to the R5 because Vlog is my favorite log profile to work with, no question at all. And yeah, the raw output on that is lovely if you can avoid breaking an HDMI cable, which I have now done twice with that damn camera. So I want
micro HDMI,
bigger cables.
Same problem on the R5. But Jordan, did I miss that you selected one? Like, did you agree on the R5 or
no, I was actually going to, because I thought the R5 was too obvious and I knew that was going to be your pick. The S5 was my pick for that.
Nice.
As a hybrid. But I do think like the S3, should we throw that as video? Because I do think it's worth talking about.
I think it qualifies for both. You can choose it if you want as the best video camera. I'm gonna warning, I won't. Like, I don't think it is the best of all the video cameras. So that's kind of weird. Like, it's weird to not have it win anything because like it's crazy. It's such an amazing camera. Yeah,
it is very good. Yeah,
and in some people's books, it would win hybrid for some for a lot of users. When I remember, this is a tweet it's not going to age well. Like when it was announced, I was like, this is going to become like the new standard for anybody that shoots in like a compact run and gun kind of way that is used to using smaller cameras. Everybody's going to be picking this up. But that was before the R5 was announced and before all of the other video cameras we might talk about were announced, and it's like, whoa, it has a lot more competition than I expected. So,
well, I still think it's going to be a slow burn, like you mentioned, Patrick, the GH5. Like it sold well at first, but it's that it sold well for like 5 years that made it kind of the legendary camera that it is. Because there's no headline feature here that's going to make people run out and buy it. It's just when you're using it, it's a very good tool for professional. Like it's so good. The FX6 is probably a good camera, but I didn't give it a very good review because it's based on an A7S III that's so great for half the price and a lot better in a lot of ways. That if I were, working events or BTS or something like that, which a lot of people are, it would be my number one camera for sure.
All right, well, let's move on to actual video cameras then. Jordan, what's your number one video camera?
I haven't got my hands on a C70, but I do think I kind of have to give it. Like, I want to play with that camera badly. It makes a lot of sense. So, and I just said I did not enjoy using the FX6 very much, and I haven't gotten it read yet. So there's 3 there.
And spoiled.
Yeah, the C70 is the one I'm most eager to get my hands on.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping for your guys' help because did I write something down? I didn't. I did write one down, but I don't have a choice here. I do not know what the best video camera of the year is, so I feel like we got to figure it out right here. Patrick, can you help me out?
It's weird. On paper, I feel like it's the FX6. It's like the one that Lee Zavitz and I talk about it all the time because, he's a Sony shooter and he's going from a Canon C200 Mark II. He's like, what's my next camera going to be? That 8-bit on the C200 starts to wear, especially in 2020, 2021 now. So it's like, what's the next thing? And then, the C70 being Super 35 is one thing that's kind of thrown me off a little bit, where I want to go to the Sony because it's full frame. And it's just, without playing with them yet, I want to say the FX6. And again, I haven't tried it yet, but from chatting with friends and whatnot, it seems like it would be the one that I'd want to use, but it could be one that I pick up and I can't stand, right? It's like, I have a Blackmagic Pocket 4K and I love the image quality, but I hate everything else about that camera, right? And it could be one of those situations too. And I could see that even happening with a C70 where it's like, what is this weird hybrid mirrorless DSLR body style, but it's a cinema camera, and I could see that getting annoying, or it could be amazing. And so it's a toss-up for me between the FX6 and the C70, I think, for sure.
I could talk you into it in both directions. Like one thing I feel like the FX6 is maybe underrated for, something I know I would use, even though I don't even know that much about it. I haven't tried this camera, but it has the same like gyroscopic stabilization in post as the A7S III, right?
The Catalyst browser, whatever it's called. Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of extra work to do that, but the fact that you can't do anything like that on the Canon, it does have the digital stabilization that does something. It's not useless, but for professional work, like you can see it. It's tracking your subject, and so sometimes there can be a misalignment between the actual subject and the background. You get this little bit of a wobbly effect, or like just a weird rhythm or movement to how the camera is actually tracking things. That is not visible on what Sony is doing, and I feel like every camera needs to get on this immediately. Like this ability, if anybody hasn't seen it, basically the camera is tracking its gyroscope movements just like an iPhone does. This is why the iPhone's stabilization is perfect, is because it's also using the accelerometer to know how it's moving and canceling those movements out exactly, not looking at the scene, but like physically, how did the camera move, and then applying that back to the footage. So that is awesome. I really like that Sony's doing that. On the C70 side, down by the seaside, right, you were talking about the Super 35 sensor. I didn't get to try the speed booster yet. I've played with speed boosters before, and they can be a mixed bag. The tests from this look great, and the fact that it's first party makes me not worried about some of the compatibility issues I've had before. I've had the Metabones make the whole FX7 flake out. Like it can have effects, and I am pretty sure that is not going to be happening. But all of a sudden, you get upgrades like, so I've got a 24-105 f4 stabilized Canon lens. Like it's like the most accessible kit lens. They're everywhere. You can get them for cheap. That suddenly becomes a 24, approximately, I think the conversion's slightly off, but once you've got that speed booster on, it's a 24-105 2.8 stabilized lens for a really good deal. and like that like getting the additional speed, the full frame, almost full frame equivalence is like, wow, I'm just looking at all my lenses. I'm like, maybe I'm not going to switch from EF to RF. All my EF glass looks so much more appealing once it's a little bit faster, and the stabilized stuff still works. Like there's a lot to look forward to, and the way that speed booster works is it clamps right onto the C70, and it can just live there. Like you can just treat it like just pretend forever that it's a full frame camera, and I don't know. That's how I imagine I'm going to shoot a lot. I'll find out if that's true in the end. And also, one last detail about that: it made me realize that my Sigma 18 to 35, which I use all the time, I'm using it right now on the C200, 1835 1.8, everybody's used it so much. That's on a cropped sensor. So 1.8 has always been closer to 2.8. Now a 24 to 70, which I have a Canon 24 to 70, that becomes a 2.0. All of a sudden you've got a bigger zoom range, and it's a 2.0 on kind of a superior lens. Like for anybody that hasn't noticed, the 1835 has a lot of barrel distortion and a bit of extra chromatic aberration. Even though it's really sharp, it does have optical issues. So anyway, that was a lot. I just said a lot. I guess. So which one did I sell better there?
I so want to devil's advocate quickly for both of these.
Yeah, go for it.
Because the FX6, the Catalyst software, is a nightmare. Like, it crashed on me constantly. I had so many exports of longer takes, just would not kick out. And you don't have any other third-party options. It's got to go through that software. The other problem with gyro is it works great on your phone, and it works awesome with faster shutter speeds or frame rates. But if you're a traditional 24 at a 48th of a second filmmaker, if you're moving the camera and you put your foot down, you blur a frame. And it doesn't matter how good the gyro is, only IBIS is going to counteract that. So when I did my walking tests, it's the same thing I'm used to seeing. It's certainly better than a warp stabilizer. It has more information. But you do still have walk, 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 blurry frame, walk, 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 blurry frame, which does drive me crazy. And then the C70 speed booster advantage, the A7S the FX6 sensor is more sensitive. So, you're not getting a stop less depth of field necessarily. Well, you're not when you use the speed booster. You're still getting full frame depth of field, but your lens is a stop brighter, but your sensor is a stop more sensitive on the FX6. So it does wind up becoming a wash at the end of the day.
Right.
It's tough.
That's all
Too
fair.
much
Well,
math.
Here's what I actually wrote down. What I put as my favorite isn't any of those cameras, even though the C70 is probably what I'm going to buy. I put down the red Komodo.
Nice.
And this is a race. It's like, it's not obvious. It's not obvious who's, kind of winning this, but like the red Komodo was just the most exciting camera I used. I loved shooting with it. Like, it felt so good. Yeah. You all know that feeling when you pick up a camera and you're like, I just want to keep shooting with this. Like, I just want to make stuff. I want to keep this in my hands for as long as possible and keep hitting the record button. And it really felt good. The reasons that, I still keep trying to talk myself into it. The reasons I probably won't, battery life on the C70 is going to blow it away. Like, in a way that really changes how you work. I mean, it's easy to, I don't know. We all have made sacrifices by using a mediocre battery life camera before because it has great image quality, but like, you know what? It can actually slow down a production and mean that less gets done at the end of the day. Similarly, the raw footage means files are bigger. I right now transcode my raw stuff from the C200. So, you still have the flexibility, but you have to do another step first before you get it. I think it's meant for somebody that isn't necessarily me doing YouTube all the time, like putting out a high volume of work. It would be the ideal thing for like the high-end commercial work we do. But for the volume of things we put out, the C70 just fits our workflow better. Also, NDs. I hate external NDs. So,
how did you feel about the cube form factor? Because that's something I'm kind of that's what I keep thinking
so
too.
Good, yeah. Especially at that size. Like it reminds me of a Hasselblad so much, especially because the screen is on top and you're holding it very comfortably in your hands and looking down at it. I'm like, this is all I want. This is all I want to shoot with forever. It's a better form factor than the C70.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, my big wish last year when we did this, Tyler, is I said I want more compressed RAW video. And we did start to see ProRes RAW and B-RAW on cameras, but none of it internal because of Red's patents on that. And that's what I really do miss. Like, working with Red RAW is the best. Like, every once every 5 years, I'll shoot like a short film or something with a red. And every time I say, I will never do that ever again, that was a nightmare, until it's in post. And it's like, okay, well, it's sort of, I don't know if it was 100% worth it. But I am hearing the Komodo is also, because it is, a more consumer camera, it has to be less flaky than some of their higher end stuff where, you've got technicians on set. So from what I'm hearing, it is quite stable and reliable, which means I really, if I short film or a commercial gig or something, that is a camera I would actually really look at hiring until it flakes out on set. And I say, I'm never going to touch another red again for another 5 years, but we'll see.
What other ones did we forget about real quick?
BGH1 from Panasonic, which we mentioned in the pre-roll. Just a very cool little small cube camera. Beautiful image. It's weird because it's not full Vlog, but it's not Vlog L. I don't know. It's this.
But it looks great.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. The 12K Blackmagic Ursa came out this year too.
Yeah, I was going to put a shout out to that, not because of the 12K, which is probably great. Like, 12K. I don't even care about 8K, but the sensor seems to be really, really exceptional. And that 12K footage, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's smaller file size than the 8K RAW coming out of the R5, like substantially for the 12K RAW. Like, you can actually practically shoot with it. Both the compression, because the compression is so efficient, and DaVinci is so well optimized for it that most computers can handle it, which is like, that's really cool. They've done something amazing with that sensor. I haven't shot with it. I probably never will, but it's obviously a cool camera. So I don't know. It was such a good year. We were spoiled. But so that we don't end up staying on this one topic for the whole rest of the show, which I kind of want to do. The next thing I got is just accessory, general tech accessory, filmmaking, photography accessory. This is wide open. Patrick, why don't you kick this one off?
I went for an accessory that maybe isn't specific. I went more tech. Maybe you brought me on to be more tech, but I went more tech on this one for an accessory. And I'm just going to give it to the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro, because that came out this year, and it was like one of those things where it completely transformed the way that I use the iPad. It turned a device that I mainly used as a consumption device, something I would use to watch Netflix and stuff like that, or browse email, Twitter, and whatnot, to a computer. I think it was like the first time I felt like the iPad really was a computer alternative. And so I've just loved that Magic Keyboard. I will say, since I got the M1, and I think if you have an M1 MacBook Air or the new 13-inch Pro, you probably will never need an iPad anymore because the speed is just so phenomenal with these new M1 Macs. But if you are someone that has an iPad Pro, the 2018 or the 2020 models, I just think that keyboard completely transforms it. Even though it's expensive, Canadian, it's like $450. I think it's one of those things like the AirPods Max where once you finally have it at hand and you feel it, you understand like the R&D and the engineering that went into it. Because if you tried any other keyboard for an iPad, it's not even a contest. Like, it's really not even a contest. And so that's my accessory for the year. I bought it early on in the pandemic when it was announced and everything came out, and it was like, do I need to spend this money right now with an uncertain future? But I went for it, and I haven't regretted it since.
Well, and along with the hardware aspect is just such good software integration too, like bringing iPad OS to the point where having a mouse and keyboard feels native to it, like feels intentional, and it's a fluid movement as you move between touchscreen and something in the physical world. I think it's been really good too. I don't have to say why I wouldn't choose it. The only thing for me is I still don't use my iPad that much. That's like the only thing I can say against it is it's still an iPad. But for me, I'm such a Mac person. Like, I just love the Mac. Yeah. So that the only strike against it is I still want the iPad OS to come further. I want it to be able to do have a more complete workfoow. So Jordan,
I always hit a roadblock with the iPad. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, it didn't come out this year, but the iFootage Cobra 2 monopod changed my life this year.
Yeah, I got one of those this year too, actually. That's so crazy. It's phenomenal.
I shot on Manfrotto fluid monopods for like 10 years and never thought I'd switch. And Gerald Undone, when he came to Calgary to do the studio tour with you, Tyler, is like, dude, the way you shoot, like, this will change your life. So yeah, I did it, and it has changed my life. Like, it's right now, it's just freestanding in front of my desk with a GH5S and a 1025 on it, which I would never do with any other monopod. I love the option that you can just pop the feet off it and have a low boy. I use that constantly. It's solid. The snaps feel great. It's just like a perfect, like, I have nothing to complain about. And it's been my job is to complain about things. So I love it.
If you do a detective deep dive on my Twitter, there is a shot where I made an A-roll system, kind of Caleb Pike kind of style where it's just like a one-man show kind of band thing, where I have a Blackmagic Pocket 4K with a V-mount with a Ninja on it, all facing me, and it's just sitting on the iFootage monopod. And everyone would be like, "You're insane. That's crazy." But you actually trust this thing so much, you're like, "It's fine." You can walk around it, you can feel it. It's crazy how sturdy it is. It's a wonderful, wonderful monopod.
I'm actually really sick of my Manfrotto. Like my Manfrotto catches. So, there's a fluid ball at the end, but it's like it's popping all the time. It's like as you move it jerks. And
anytime you try and shift the horizon in a shot, it pans beautifully. But that's what really inspired me to switch over, because I was talking to Gerald again, and it's just like, anytime we cut to coverage and there's no motivation, that's that monopod sticking on me right there.
Right. Yeah. I have to check them out. Gerald was also the one that showed me the first time of those. Mine is not 2020 as well, but it's just when I was like, what have I used a lot? Actually, wait, no, I got a runner up as well. What have I used a lot this year? Like what, just life accessories, what has been really integrated into what I do? And I was like, well, things I use every single day. I use my phone and I use my Mac nonstop and my AirPods Pro. Like 100% of the days, there are a few hours where I have AirPods Pro in my ears. So how could I not choose them? Like they're just so integrated into everything that I do. And when they first came out, I'd complained a bit about discomfort that totally went away. I don't know. I mean, maybe it chiseled out the part of my ear that was hurting. I don't know why it stopped hurting, but they don't at all anymore. And sound quality's there. It's funny, actually, I usually only wear one at a time. So I end up not even using the sound isolation, which was exciting for travel, which hasn't really been happening so much. But like on an airplane, the one flight that I took, I didn't bring over-ear headphones because the isolation was good enough. I don't know. They're not new. It's not the first time anybody's heard about them, but I'm like, you know what? I got to just like keep giving credit to the whole AirPod line. Really, it's like I just use them so much and I like them so much, and I had wished for them for something like it for so many years that I mean, they're amazing. Runner up, dark horse that nobody would have guessed. This is a general recommendation for anybody out there, and they're not sponsoring this episode, but an electric toothbrush of any kind. You actually don't have to follow my brand, but so I got a Philips for a sponsorship that was sponsored. So I should censor that name out of this because they're not sponsoring this episode. But yeah, I'm like, okay, like cool. Like I can feel fancy and luxurious with my electric toothbrush. But you know what? The first time I used it, I'm like, wait a minute. My teeth were never clean before. I was never brushing my teeth properly compared to what this is doing. Like it is totally game changing in terms of both like how well it gets the shit off your teeth, but also that it, after talking to my dentist afterwards, that like it's much better. And this isn't just about the one I'm using. Any of the modern good electric toothbrushes are also way better for gum line, wearing it away. What do you call that? What's the word for it?
I don't know the word.
When you're wearing away your gums from over brushing, like the aggressiveness of moving a toothbrush back and forth. Anyway, it's like such a cheesy
gum line? Receding gum line.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. It's totally cheesy, but it like it's just, I just look back. I'm like, yeah, no, that was kind of transformative, and I would never go back now. So I don't know, anybody that's never looked into them. I know they seem kind of expensive, but you can't. What I also did is the replacement brushes are where they get you, and you can order them on Amazon for like 1/100th of the price. You can get like a 10 pack for $10 instead of, if you go to the drugstore, it's like $50 for 2. So I don't know. That's it.
Boom. Oral hygiene, always important.
Yeah. And part of it, actually, I kind of want to, I want to do like an episode where I talk about Invisalign as well. Cause I had them for last year. So I have a lot more oral hygiene tips than I ever had before.
Remember you got them in last time I was on for the best and worst. That was your first podcast with them. Yeah, right. So I got a disclaimer. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It was like just over. Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk about this some other day. Moving on to, this is a weird one this year. Best movie is what the category previously was. And just before we started recording, I'll let you guys know that this could be movie or series because, well, first of all, we've started to really blur the lines between TV and movies, and almost no movies were released this year. So I've been very shocked to hear how many other people don't miss theaters like I miss theaters, because I really miss them a lot. I love them. Yeah, Jordan's shaking his head because he's,
you
a
people.
fool. But because he has kids. Because he has kids.
Oh no, I all I want is movie theaters back. I keep saying that same thing. Good. No, that's my sanctuary. Oh, I need it.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. So many people are completely on the opposite side. So Patrick, are you on our side or?
I don't know. I mean, you guys don't know this, but we bought a theater out to see Tenet, just to make it safe.
Nice. Yeah.
So, I mean, in high school, I worked at a movie theater through 3-4 years.
So
it's kind of just
same here.
Well, there you go. So Cineplex and everything just has a sentimental value for me. So
me too.
As much as I'm totally into the home theater setup and we've decked it out and we've got a nice setup at home and everything to watch things as the best quality we possibly could. But there's just a feeling of being in a theater that I miss. It's just the camaraderie and when we saw Tenet, it wasn't the movie that I was excited about. It was walking out of a theater with your friends and having that post-theater conversation right away. I didn't even realize how much I missed that until we actually experienced it. And most people that came to that screening, there was only about 10 of us just to keep the bubble safe. But that's what most people took away. It was just the feeling of being in a theater and witnessing and experiencing something, just the community of it. That's why I miss theaters. And I love streaming and I've had no issue watching blockbuster movies, whatever it is, at home. But I just miss that feeling of being in a theater, whatever it is, that je ne sais quoi that we can't even put our finger on. I hope that comes back at some point.
I started to put my finger on it a bit as I watch more movies,
nice.
More things at home. Part of what's really important about it as well is that you focus. It doesn't,
totally,
even if the image quality isn't better, which it usually is, sometimes it's not, but you're watching the whole time and it's not going to stop for you and you can't check your phone and you're not going to leave as easily to, wander off to the kitchen for snacks. You sit there and you watch the damn movie, which is hard to do with our ADD addled TikTok brains. There's so much value in that, in the ritual of being forced into a theater. But anyway, none of us really were that much this year. So I'll just go first real quick. I've talked about it on the show before, but mine is a series, and I'm going to say Ted Lasso because I just really enjoyed it, and I just kept wanting to watch every episode one after the other. I wish there was more, but it was great.
It's the perfect show for this period. It is legitimately heartwarming without being sappy. I saw some interesting stuff online. It's a dude show that's not insulting, which it's been a very long time since there was something like that. And I think it really hit a nerve, which will hopefully inspire more stuff like that. If you said it's a show about even discount the coach. If you just said it's a British soccer team, I'm out. But
the premise does not.
The synopsis doesn't work for me at all.
Yeah. But it is wonderful. And I love that because the morning show was clearly supposed to be Apple TV's, this is our house of cards. This is our prestige TV that's going to get you in there. And no one has mentioned it in quite a while, but we're all still talking about Ted Lasso a while back. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I'll kind of repeat the thing I said about it last time I brought it up. But what the thing that felt one of the many things that felt so good about it is it is a dude show, like you say. It's a lot of guys in it, and it's kind of made for guys more or less, although anybody can enjoy it. But it's such a usefully forward-thinking perspective on masculinity, where it's it both doesn't mean that you can't be tough and be masculine, that it can be part of it, but it's not required to be a good person and be a good friend and be part of society. And it just had one of the best balances I've seen of here's where we could all look moving forward to be good guys, the kind of guy that, hopefully we may all want to be. So anyway, that's kind of a sappy one. Patrick, what do you got?
I'm going to recommend a movie, actually. So I watched this recently. It's a movie called The Nest. It's Jude Law and Carrie Coon. It's directed by a guy named, I have it written down here, Sean Durkin, who did Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, which is kind of an indie movie. So same director, and he wrote this too. The best way I can describe it is, what if a crumbling marriage drama was filmed like a horror movie? And it's set in Reagan era 80s, which is totally my aesthetic. It looks like everything's shot on Kodak Gold, Kodachrome kind of vibe. It is shot on film. It's beautiful, and it's all 80s cars, and it's a lot of it was shot in Toronto, but it's set in upstate New York and whatnot. And it's just a beautifully shot, really weird, creepy drama. It surprised me like crazy. I've watched it a couple times already, and I loved it. It's called The Nest, and you can get it on Apple TV if you rent it. It's $4.99.
The trailer looks good.
Yeah, it's great.
I didn't even see the trailer. That sounds so up my alley, though.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's so good.
Jordan?
This isn't sponsored by Apple, even though you can find all of them on there. The biggest sleeper for me I just loved is Little America. Have you guys seen this?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I saw posters for it, actually. I haven't seen it yet, though.
So it's Kumail Nanjiani. He's he's reached out to find stories of immigrant experiences, and they're short films, all directed by people from that background. And typically, I'm not a fan of short film anthologies like New York, I Love You and stuff like that, because there's always one good one and a bunch of garbage. But they're all they're all really beautiful, well thought out, and they all share an aesthetic. Like, it does feel all like one piece. And they're all a half hour. I think there's only 8 of them. But it's like, if you were to ask me my favorite movie this year, I might pick one of those shorts. It's on Apple TV. It's wonderful. And it's just a bunch of very interesting, moving, it's the Ted Lasso thing. It sounds like it could be weepy and melodramatic, but it's just very moving and human, and it's awesome. So check it out.
I believe it. It looks good. Cool. What else do we have? So this one I'd actually ask. I know, Jordan, your policy on video games, because we were texting about it the other day, that you used to play them and now you don't so much. Patrick, do you game at all? I didn't ask you.
I mean, I got this PC now because I got it because I was like, oh, maybe if we don't know what's happening with Apple, like, I'll get into Resolve. And, I pulled a Gary Everyday Dad where I was just like, I'm going to get a PC and that's going to be my Resolve editing machine. And then I just couldn't stand Windows. Sorry to any PC users out there, but sure. Windows is just not my jam at all. But now I have this like really nice Ryzen 5 gaming machine that does pretty well. So I got super into Flight Simulator. So Microsoft Flight Simulator for me, the new one that just came out in 2020, is insane. You guys have probably seen screenshots from it. I don't know if many people know this, but I mean, people on the inside know. There's a photo on my Instagram of New York, the skyline, from like a drone, but it's a shot from Flight Sim. It's a screenshot from Flight Sim. So it's one of those games where you're lost for like 3-4 hours doing nothing. You're just flying around. It's like a game where you just walk around, but it's just so beautiful that you're sitting there 3-4 hours into a flight from like Singapore or somewhere, and you're just like, I'm engrossed in this. And I was like, all the world just kind of melts away as you're up in the air. It's a very, very fascinating experience. And
wait, that's something I was unclear about.
PC,
something I wasn't sure about because I didn't watch the reviews is like, is it real time? So like, you're flying to Singapore, do you have to play this level for like 12 hours?
You can like speed fly if you want to, but I mean, the real time aspect of it is kind of what makes it interesting. It's like the simulation part of it. And I'm a bit of an aviation kind of geek just on the side. I just find it interesting. And so you can have it so simulated that you literally have to have like a pilot's license to figure it out. You got to call air traffic control and you got to figure it out. You got to plot your waypoints and check in when you pass different airports and whatnot. And it is real time. You could do like a 10-hour flight if you wanted to, and literally you'd have to sit there for 10 hours. I mean, you could autopilot, go make some toast or something.
I thought that's how it really happened. Yeah. That's the real simulation is not flying.
Totally. But it's like I bought a joystick and everything, so it's like I really got into it, and I've taken a break for it because I was just getting a little too sucked in. It was a bit of a time waster when you're doing 10-hour flights for no reason. But no, it is a fascinating, just beautiful, beautiful game.
Nice, yeah, I do want to try it, especially if I always keep thinking about building a PC too. So if I do, that'll be the first thing I test on it. Other than Cyberpunk, but what have you, Jordan? Did you end up playing anything?
I did not.
All right. Well, there you go. Sorry to hear
this it. The 2021 might be the year. We'll see. You've piqued my interest, but I got to get over that guilt.
Cyberpunk.
I did pretty good this year for like I played enough games. Like I got the games in that I wanted without going way down any rabbit holes and wasting too much time. And this was a good year. First of all, the consoles coming out, like the whole console area is another reason that this has been kind of an amazing year. So we've got PS5 and the new Xboxes, and they're great. But I can go back a little before that, even though I did have the chance to play PS5 games within the year. Miles Morales was great. Cyberpunk is very good. It works on a PS5, even though it doesn't on a PS4. But for me, Final Fantasy VII Remake has to be my pick because it was just so much more ambitious than it had to be. It was insanely beautiful, expanded on everything that the original was in all the right ways of both being innovative and new and creative while recognizing what made the original so good. And most of this is just in the world of art. Like it was visually so beautiful and so imaginative and wonderful music, and a lot of it's coming back from things that were created years ago, so they're resurfacing original material, but just treating it with such care and really understanding what made the original good. So such a good game. I did play through all of it, which it's the first RPG I've beat in years, and I'll definitely play whatever comes next. But I also need to say Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call.
Like,
yeah.
I put so many hours into the original. Like it's probably the game I've played the most ever, is just Tony Hawk's in general. And yeah, I just gobbled this up. Like I was so into it, and I'm still playing. I know I'll keep playing it for at least another year, because it's so good to just like drop into, just 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. For somebody that doesn't have a lot of time to play games, it's perfect for me. So yeah, that one too. Yeah, so Jordan,
I really want to check that out. Yeah, because that was the only game, the second one, that I beat it with every character to get Spider-Man, and that was that was the first year of college, and nothing got done. So I need to revisit that.
It's another year of a good Spider-Man game and Tony Hawk, because the original Tony Hawk 1 was built on the Spider-Man engine. That's how it was developed. So like the early development videos, you can see it was Spider-Man skateboarding around as they were trying to figure out the like the gravity and all that. Like it functioned the same as the Spider-Man game. So anyway, man, what a year for games. What a year. What else do I have? Oh yeah, then I also got best book. Does anybody read?
Yep.
Audiobooks qualify.
I actually didn't hit up that many audiobooks this year because I wasn't driving. And that's generally, but I did grab what my wife, as I mentioned earlier, I was looking for a book and she reminded me I did read one that I really dug. It's very quick and easy. It's The Language of the Lens, which is...
Here, hold that up for a video.
By Gustavo Mercado.
Yes, I have looked at that book. That is a good book.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's just about how to tell a story with different lenses used in different ways. But we're all tired of the Citizen Kane Boy and the Snowman, an example, or, the close-ups from like a lot of the German Expressionist films, stuff like that. This is all very current. Like there are a few classical examples, but I mean, the front of it is from The Favorite, which really interestingly used ultra-wide angle lenses and stuff like that. But it's something that really, on a year where I couldn't get on a set, really made me want to go try doing some narrative filmmaking again. It just gives you a lot of ideas. It's full color images from all the movies with sequences so you can see how they cut together. And yeah, you'll plow through it in a few hours, and it's one of my favorite things that I stumbled across. So good that I forgot about it until we started this podcast.
No, that is a really good recommendation. And I just want to throw in there a thing that has been on my mind because that's very topical too, is like, I think modern films are underrated in how insanely beautiful they are. Like we're really used to it, but like just go look at some stills from a Marvel movie or a Star Wars or like Moonlight I was thinking about the other day. Modern films look so good. It's insane. And like there are many older films that are beautiful, and of course like we should be looking back to them for inspiration and to appreciate them, but like it's the best now is just so perfect. Like we have such good lenses and so much control over our lighting, and like we have to appreciate the filmmakers that are out there. Knives Out, I mean, the cinematography is just like, there's so much good cinematography right now. And I just wanted to say that. Patrick, what about you?
I'm gonna. We didn't specify what kind of book, so I'm going to do a cookbook. So this is Matty Matheson's Homestyle Cooking, and I wish I could pull it up, but I'm actually using it to hold my laptop up right now. I have it underneath the laptop.
That's good. High recommendation. I mean, it does hold the laptop steadily. Like
it does hold the laptop
5 out of 5
very well. It's double purpose. It's a cookbook and a laptop stand, which is always nice.
If
you're not familiar with Matty Matheson, he's like one of the craziest, most like huge personalities on YouTube. He's a chef from Toronto. He's opened a lot of restaurants here too. He's got a wicked YouTube channel that started with Munchies at Vice and stuff, and now he's got millions of subscribers and whatever. But he just released his cookbook, and cookbooks are always cookbooks, the recipes. But what I like what he did with this though is each recipe even has a bit of a story too, so you can just kind of sit there and flip through and like read about his childhood and like the inspiration behind each dish and whatnot. And it's just a really cool like piece of Canadiana too. It's just he's from Fort Erie, and so it's just like a real homestyle cookbook. And I've never had like my own cookbook that I'll probably keep for 10, 20 years. give to my kids one day, a long time when I'm a grandpa or whatever. And I feel like this is one of those kind of cookbooks where you just keep in the family. It's fun.
Nice. I'm horrible at cooking, but maybe a cookbook could turn me around.
I should quickly mention that Tashin's Stanley Kubrick Archives is also excellent as a laptop stand. It's working for me right now while we're on that. Yeah.
Wow, this is a very practical episode. I think we're helping a lot of people here. My pick is going to be John Hodgman's Medallion Status, and kind of every year that John Hodgman puts out a book, I feel like I could just pick whatever he did. I might have picked Vacation Land one of the previous years. I love John Hodgman. If you didn't see the last Apple keynote, he reprised his role as a PC, which was so great to see him kind of come back for a moment in the classic Mac ads. But he is also a great writer, great comedian, personality, podcaster. I really enjoy his very dry, like quiet, subtle humor that is absolutely hilarious to me. It's just like it's all the right tones. And Medallion Status is about flying before the pandemic, basically. And part of his sort of like rise and not fall, but like the experience of being a pretty well-known celebrity all of a sudden. And, you know, now he's not so well-known, but still doing awesome stuff. So yeah, I really appreciated it. And you can read all his books because they're all good. Final category. We got one more thing. Best podcast. And of course, you don't have to say this one. I'll go through mine real quick first, which is called Smartless. And I have been going through every single episode. I've just been binging it over the holidays. And it's one of those ones I'm surprised it even exists because it's like so right up my alley. It has Sean Hayes, which I wasn't as familiar with from before this, but he's the actor from Will and Grace, and Jason Bateman and Will Arnett, the brothers of Arrested Development, if anybody doesn't remember. And they are such a great set of guys, and they just bring on guests, and because they have some very famous friends, and they interview them. And it's called Smartless, and the theme is like, oh, it's just gonna be dumb humor. But then like you spend some time with them, and you're like, wait. These are like these guys are the good celebrities. There are a lot of douchey celebrities out there that, have sort of been spoiled and turned into shitbags. But these guys are really genuine and thoughtful people. And I come away from a lot of episodes, like even just having interesting ideas about being a creative as a profession. And like one of the main things I walked away with, I said this is going to be quick and I'm talking a lot. One big thing I've walked away with that Jason Bateman talks about quite a bit, because he was very famous from very young. Like he was a child actor. Everybody remembers Teen Wolf 2. I certainly do. And he has talked about like that nobody recognizes how much most artistic endeavors, which, that's also what we do, the three of us here and many people listening. You think that it's based on your skill. It feels like a meritocracy where the best of the best will rise to the top. And the reality is that art is not. So much of it is just based on taste and mood and the momentum of the public. And it's something I always have to think about as well. It's like, it's so awesome that any listeners that are listening to this right now are out there, but whether or not they're going to stick around and whether you'll have a sense of what the public wants isn't guaranteed to stay. And, just hearing somebody that's gone through like the ups and downs of that and like finding his identities. He's like, oh, I'm a huge star. I'm the biggest star in the world. And I'm 20 years old. And now all of a sudden nobody wants to cast me in any movies. And he has a quiet period for like 8 years. I think it's good to think about that stuff ahead of time if you are ever considering being in public as part of your job at all. That was a lot to say. But anyway, Smartless, great show. Jordan, your podcast.
So mine, I haven't been listening to a lot of podcasts like a lot of people because I'm not driving around. So I haven't really looked out to discover a bunch, but I did find one that I'm working through the back catalog on right now. It's a podcast called Blank Check. And it's a pretty interesting premise. They look at directors who had really successful movies. So the studios are just like, here's a bunch of money, go do whatever you want with it. And sometimes they wind up creating masterpieces with that, but a lot of the time, which I find more interesting, they have huge failures. So I'm listening to the Brad Bird series right now, who did a bunch of hits: Iron Giant, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and then made Tomorrowland, which none of us remembered actually happened, but I love those. I love those stories, and just, so often filmmaking is people make their best work with a lot of constrictions. And so hearing about once those are all lifted, so many people struggle with that, I find really, really interesting. And it's funny. It's very loose. Most of the episodes are longer than the movies they're talking about, but it's a good listen.
I am writing that down because I can 100% tell that's like so up my alley. I need to listen to that. And it makes me think of what I spent a lot of time thinking about what happened to the first 3 Star Wars films, like what went wrong with George Lucas that gave us the Phantom Menace, and especially Attack of the Clones. So kind of not exactly that, but yeah, I got to hear this. It sounds great. What about you, Patrick?
Kind of in the same realm, if you guys maybe already listened to it too, but the Roger Deakins podcast.
Amazing. Oh, that should have been my pick. Totally.
There's a really great episode with an ARRI engineer, and they just talk about how the Alexa happened, how all, from the flex back with the film cameras, optics, lenses, just so much like engineering into cameras and stuff that I just never really understood before. And it was a really good kind of like, because Roger's a prolific, amazing cinematographer, but at the same time, he talks and acts like us. Like he just chats like a regular dude. And I think it's really cool because he's just very down to earth. The Jake Gyllenhaal episode is also one of my favorites. Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors, and just the conversation they have about Making Prisoners, which is one of my favorite movies too. It's just such a cool, just look behind the scenes of like how a lot of the stuff that we love is made. And there's just really cool little tidbits and facts that you can bring up at a cocktail party when we can have those again soon.
Yeah, if anybody listening has not listened to the Deakins podcast, like it's just a must listen. If you like this show, you're gonna like it. Did you guys catch when I tweeted? I think it was maybe 3 months before the show started that I was like, Roger Deakins needs to have a podcast because he was really good in an interview.
Did you tag him in that?
Yeah, and now, I mean, obviously it's not, but like, I really felt it. I'm like, I was watching some interviews where he was talking about 1917. I always forget the year.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he is so well spoken. And again, I mean, the word thoughtful is a good one. It's like some people just do interesting things but can't say anything about it that's really productive. And he's really thinking about what he's doing. He's no dummy, he understands the art and the gear and just loves the work that he does and is polite and has a wonderful voice. And what a guy.
It's so interesting. Like most of the filmmakers are like people in that class. They're amazing communicators because they have to be to work with that many people all the time. So you can tell this is a guy who can just explain a concept to you very effectively. And that's a big part of why I love that podcast.
Yeah, I've started to appreciate that in life. In like, just if you're good at something, how much it matters to just have clarity of thought. Like to like expressing yourself well is one element of it, but it's such a big part to actually have that sorted out internally as well. And that's a lot of what you're seeing when somebody speaks well. I've really respected this a lot in Ali Abdaal. I brought him on for a YouTube video recently where we were just talking about like productivity and stuff. And every time I'm talking to him, and he gives a lot of tips about staying organized and productivity stuff. And I'm like, the real difference here is like your head is not a rat's nest of totally disparate ideas that have nothing to do with each other. And you can focus on something for more than 5 minutes. And I'm like, that goes a long way. And that reminds me of the feeling I have with Deakins is it's like, you understand what you're trying to do. It's not necessarily about every little gadget or, it's not, he doesn't have the craziest ideas. It's not that he's experimenting the most. It's just like he knows what he's after and he can work with the team in a way that gets it done. By the way, I think there's a mistake in a recent episode. Did anybody listen to the James Dean one?
I don't think I listened to that one yet. No.
He mistook, I think he was referring to Edmonton when he meant Calgary. And I was really disappointed at that because he was talking about the train that they were shooting with. He was like, yeah, there's this old park where they have old buildings and an old train. And that's what we used to film in Edmonton. I'm like, that's Calgary.
Yeah.
Roger, remember which Canadian...
You got to tweet him again.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he'll amend a future episode and correct it. But Anyway, that's the end of my list, guys. I think it was a very productive way to spend an evening, and thanks for going with all your favorite 2020 stuff. But first of all, or last of all, before we sign off, where can people find you? Jordan, where's the best place to follow you?
On Twitter and Instagram, I'm at that Jordan Drake. Because Michael Jordan and Drake made a shoe together and rendered me ungoogleable. So I am that Jordan Drake. And then, of course, check out DP Reviews, DP Review TV YouTube channel. That's where all my work is going right now. And we do 2 episodes a week, and there's always a few more coming out.
And Patrick, you're only on Twitter, right?
You are Twitter, Patrick.
I have Twitter, yeah.
If anybody's
Twitter
Patrick is one of the most prolific tweeters out there. So
I don't know how to carry that weight. Isaac Canupsi made me an award and like shipped it to my house. It was hilarious. It was
I didn't
like
see
best,
it. No, I gotta
best
look it up.
tweeter of the year. He made a whole thing with like looks like an Oscar. It was wild.
We should have had that category.
Yeah. Twitter and YouTube, I'm Patrick T, and then the podcast is Top Comment Podcast. YouTube, we just put out the S5 review, and we're gonna try and get on some sort of schedule this year. I won't promise anything, but we'll try to do a video every couple of weeks. We'll see. Probably once a month. Who knows what'll happen? But yeah,
that would be such a good category for next year. I should have thought of that. Anyway, next year there'll be more stuff. Hopefully, 2021 is hopefully it's less interesting than 2020. So, thanks again, guys.
Thank you.